as you see in front of you, you have an agenda for today. So we're going to go through a few things. We have a few presenters, and then we have a great panel for you all, and then we're going to do a kind of a question and answer to close today's luncheon. All right? So up next, we're going to have Amelia Rogers, Associate Director for the Center for Student Activities, to present I'm an Advisor, Now What? All right?
Thank you all. So as Chris said, I'm Amelia Rogers. I'm the Associate Director in the Student Activities Office. And today I'm really talking about what does your role as an advisor mean? What exactly are the expectations of the university of you? And what are some of the expectations you can expect from your student organization? So to start off, we're going to talk about some of the benefits of being a recognized student organization. So I know in the audience we have a couple of advisors from our sponsored organizations and a couple of advisors from our registered organizations. So I wanted to start by giving you a definition of both of those and what that means for the university. So sponsored organizations for us are organizations that you as an advisor, it is part of your job description to advise that organization. Typically those organizations also receive university funding, and with that comes some of the benefits of being able to use Mississippi State's logos in your actual logo. So the difference is, as a registered student organization, you are typically an advisor as a volunteer. So again, thank you for your time. Your organization does not have dedicated funding from the university. So you're typically getting your funding from other sources, which we'll talk about. And then with the logo usage, you're still able to use logos of Mississippi State in purchasing materials, advertising events. You just can't utilize it within your organization's logo specifically. So some of the benefits of being in those two categories of organizations is that you get to participate in different opportunities on campus. You now get to reserve rooms on campus at a cost benefit because there is a different cost structure for organizations, student organizations. You're able to have the benefit of advertising your events on our OrgSync system, which gives you more visibility. It allows you to be able to publicize to all of campus what is going on specifically. You are able to apply for appropriations. So we'll go over that process a little bit more later, but appropriations are funding that you can receive from the Student Association to help your organization out. So specifically for those registered organizations that are looking for funding sources, but also sponsored groups, it's a way for you to receive some additional funding. And then lastly, being a recognized student organization gives you the ability to be able to participate in events that happen on campus, such as organization fairs, homecoming, orientation, some of those larger aspects that happen. So you're an advisor. Now what does that mean? Well, it comes with a lot of roles and responsibilities, and it varies by organization. So for those that have advised for a while, you can probably speak to the point that every year is different. And it really depends on the students that are in your leadership of your organization that year, but also on the type of organization that you have specifically. So some organizations really require a lot of hand-holding, motivation, some pushing and encouraging. And then some organizations, and specifically some years, you just have killer rock stars that you stand out of the way, make sure that they're following all of the policies and procedures, make sure they're being fiscally responsible, and let them go. So your role is really to be that encourager, that motivator, that mentor, and again, it's going to vary on a year-by-year basis and based on what your organization specifically is. So some of the expectations that we have for you as an advisor are pretty basic. You need to maintain contact with your organization. So check in with them. Make sure that they are on track, that they're actually meeting and facilitating what they need to for their goals of the organization. The second part is really being involved in their planning process. Now, this doesn't mean making decisions for them. It doesn't mean pushing them to do what you want them to do specifically. But again, encouraging them, what is in your constitution as some of your goals and mission for your organization? And then also, what are some of the goals for your department, for the university, and making sure that they're staying on track with what those specifically are. Again, this is going to vary a little bit year by year because you'll have some years that they're very motivated, very much want to accomplish a lot, and then you have some years they're not that motivated, and that's okay. Your role, again, is to make sure that they're staying on track with what's in their constitution and making sure that they are following policies and procedures of the university. So some of the specifics of your time role, or of your role as an advisor, is for your time devotion. Again, it's going to vary. Sponsored advisors, you're probably spending a little bit more time, again, because it is part of your job description. This is the actual task in your job role, but also because you are a steward of university funds. So with that comes some additional time responsibilities. But again, it really varies. What do your students need and want from you? Do you have a student leader, student president, director who is brand new to being a student leader and they really need a lot of guidance on what that looks like? Well, that might require a little bit more time. Or you may get lucky and have a student leader who has led other organizations or has led this organization before, and they don't need as much of your time. That is up to you and to the students to decide what that specifically looks like. Again, we just ask that you stay in touch with your organization, make sure that they're staying on top of what they need to do, specifically with updates, any mandatory trainings like class, those different kind of things. So again, the big thing is setting those expectations. Really having conversations about, here's what I can dedicate to your organization specifically, and here's what I'm asking from you. So making sure that you have that conversation with them and know what those things are ahead of time. You're also going to be a role model. So again, a lot of times this is the first time these students are in this type of position, and you are teaching them how to be leaders. You're teaching them what it looks like to be a professional, to write professional emails and have professional communication. You're teaching them, maybe if it's a honor society, how to uphold some of their scholastic achievements, and so balancing time with classes, with what their organization responsibilities may look like. You may be an advisor of a recreational group or one of our competitive sport teams. So with that, being healthy, being fit, again, managing time and expectations and communicating what your practice schedule is, what your traveling schedule might look like. So it's going to vary based on your organization, what those role modeling skill sets look like. So as far as specifically OrgSync and what our office's expectations are for you, it is to approve or deny all of the events that come across for your organization in OrgSync. So some organizations may have an induction ceremony, and that's the only thing they do. You got a pretty easy job in that regards then. Some organizations, I know specifically we have one honor society that meets 4 times a week based on various different groups and then does events constantly. So it can vary based again on your organization. So making sure that you're going in a timely manner, reviewing their applications for events and approving or denying them. The nice thing about OrgSync and the reason that we really have latched onto this program specifically is that it's given us the ability to communicate across campus about various events. So if you haven't been into an event form yet, you'll notice that there's a whole communication page attached to it. This is a great opportunity for administrators across campus to be able to communicate, hey, we're missing this information, or this specific question that I need answered before I'm going to approve or deny this event. And so it's a great way for you to have some of those conversations with your students and to make sure that you're going through some of the risk management pieces that we'll talk about a little bit later. The big thing is making sure that these groups are fiscally responsible. So our expectation is that you will sign off on all financial transactions. Now, this can look different, again, for your organizations. Sponsored groups, obviously, who are utilizing university funds, that comes with some extra additional tracking methods. But we also ask for registered groups or groups that have off-campus bank accounts or are collecting dues, that you as an advisor are involved in that process. And a lot of that is you're the constant. Our organizations change over yearly, sometimes more than once a year, and you're the one that's staying consistent throughout the process. So you lend that historical perspective, you understand a little bit more about the money management aspect of it, and lend your expertise in that area. So we're asking you to be involved in that process. And then lastly, again, as a mentor to these students, as someone who's helping them develop some of their professional skills, the reason that student organizations exist, the reason that we talk so much about getting involved on campus, is this is a great way for them to learn life skills. This is a great way for them to learn how to put together an agenda, how to lead a staff meeting, how to put together an event and think through that planning process. And so for you as an advisor, it is so crucial and so beneficial if you have them reflect on that. A lot of times students will go through the motions, and at the end of the year, they're like, that was a great experience, but I can't apply that to my future jobs. Well, yes, you can. Think about in your role specifically, have you ever had to lead a staff meeting? You're teaching them those skills. Have you ever had to work through a conflict or resolve an issue? Well, you're teaching them those skills, and so by reflecting, you're giving them the opportunity to tie together, oh yeah, I did experience that, and I can apply that to my future job, and this is a great opportunity for me to talk about it in a future interview, right? And so that is one of your key roles as an advisor, is to help them connect those dots. And then what are their expectations? What should you expect specifically from them? A lot of it is for them to keep you in the loop. As much as we expect you to stay in contact with them, we also have that expectation of them for you. You should be notified of meetings and events via OrgSync through those event forms, but just making sure you're updated on all of that. If there's any changes that are happening, anything that they expect you to be at specifically, that you know that in advance. We also ask that they consult you on some of their events. Again, you're not the one making the decisions for them. This is a student organization. It is for their benefit to go through the process themselves, but involve you. Again, you are the historical perspective. You are the one who knows or will learn or have access to policies and procedures for campus. And so it's really important that they involve at least your perspective in that planning process. And then one of the key important things that I want to point out is that you always have speaking privileges for the organization. You just are not allowed to vote. So specifically when they're going through and making some of those final decisions, you can advise as much as you want leading up, but ultimately it's their decision. They get to decide what they want to do, what the course of action is. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of go through today. What does that look like when you advise them and they don't follow your advice? From a liability standpoint, from just being an advisor, a mentor standpoint, we'll kind of touch on those a little bit later. And then again, just to remind you, like, the success of the organization falls on them. It's not your responsibility. So I want you to take that as kind of a sigh of relief. I think we've all probably gone through some years that we've had really great organizations and leaders, and it's been awesome to be a part of that. And then some of us have experienced going through years where it's not the best experience. They maybe don't take your advice and fight you every step of the way. And that's okay. That's not on you. That doesn't necessarily speak to your ability as an advisor. It just happens that way sometimes. And that's a whole learning aspect for them and for us as we develop and grow as advisors too. So now I'm going to invite Tabor up, who's going to talk to you specifically about risk management, a little bit about the Clery Act, and give you a little bit more information on your role in that specifically.